skydiving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Welcome, everybody, to Dragonflower Recovery. We are a Trudging Together podcast. My name is Mandi, and with me is my friend Bobbie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Together, we're here to share the experience, strength, and hope in our personal recovery and to inspire others on their journey. We do not represent any one recovery program, but share in multiple 12-step programs. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are continuing our topic on men's mental health, and today's a special episode. We have some gentlemen guests with us today that have have come, and we're so glad that they're here to give us their experience, strength, and hope with their men's mental health, which is so important to get all their voices out there. Bobbie, would you like to introduce our gentlemen, and we can start our questions?
First of all, hi, everyone. Welcome. I want to thank all of our men for being here today, and I just want to let everyone know they are all from 12-step recovery groups, different. We have picked 4 different guys from different walks of life. Our youngest is 30 years old, and different walks of life. They're all in a different 12-step program, and they're just amazing gentlemen, and I just want to thank them so much for being here. We have Mr. G, we have Mr. HD, we have Mr. R, and we have Mr. N. Say hi, guys.
Hello, guys.
Hello. Thanks for having
us today.
Thanks for being here.
It's our honor to help you guys out.
Awesome. Well, should we start with our first question, Bobbie?
Well, I just want to really quick touch bases on a few statistics that we've gotten while we're doing this mental health awareness last month and this month, the last series. So 77% of men have suffered with symptoms of negative mental health. Men make up 70% of suicides nationwide, according to Psychology Today. One man kills himself every 20 minutes. I'm going to say that one more time. Every 20 minutes, a man takes his life. Men outnumber women 3-1 in substance abuse, and over 6 million men in America suffer from depression. And these statistics are coming from treehouserecovery.com. It's a great resource used all over the country on tracking down mental health on men and women. Back to you, Mandi.
Really harsh numbers there. Really harsh numbers. Thanks for sharing that with us, Bobbie. So, guys, I'm going to pose this question to you. When things were tough for you in your younger years growing up, hardships come, you got lots to handle. Even as a kid, something tough comes up with you. What kind of coping skills were you taught by the people around you? We'll go with Mr. HD first. We'll ask you, Mr. HD, growing up, things were tough. What coping skills did you have?
Truthfully, like I think I had said in the past, really didn't have too much problem with having to be able to cope with problems or show with emotions, but I wasn't really taught any. It was okay to act however I wanted. That was, it wasn't right, but that's the way it was. Mostly my problems came later on, and they were all of my own creation for the most part, because I worked in a really tough industry, and I learned how to be angry, and I would lash out. Men in meetings that I would go to weren't really helpful. I mean, I learned to trust the women more, and that became more of a coping skill for me is to be able to go to those meetings. But initially, before I did that, I would just resent. I was taught to take it all in and learn how to resent, and then I would lash out. So, I had daughters, and that was my problems were caused by that. And there was violence. That's what it was. It wasn't physical violence, but it was just not at home, but in the workplace. I was a truck driver, and it was a rough and tumble place, and that's how I learned to cope with things, was in an angry, harsh way, and that's what I did everywhere. And it was okay. It was just like whatever I wanted to do. That's what I was taught. It was okay to act and say and do whatever I wanted. And it was not right. And I learned now as I'm going through my own recovery program and working at it that I've learned to do better. So that's
Definitely. Thank you. When you know better, you do better. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Mr. R, same question to you. When things were tough for you in your younger years, what coping skills do you remember being taught, if any?
Coping skills? What are coping skills? No, seriously. When I was younger, it was just, suck it up, suck it up, man up, cowboy up, whatever up you want to put in front of it. That's what you had to do. Nobody wanted to hear your problems, even as a young kid. I'm not talking about like just even being a teenager. I'm talking about young, like 5, 6, 7 years old. That's what you're taught. Even on the playground, that's what you're taught. And this isn't even something like guys against guys here. Older men telling me to suck it up. This is the women in my life telling me to suck it up too. Like nobody wanted to hear it. They didn't want to hear that you had a bad day. They didn't want to hear what was going on at school. They didn't want to hear that you were really even being bullied. Like they didn't want to hear it. You had to just deal with it. As I got older, my coping mechanism became drugs and alcohol, which landed me in some 12-step groups, which thank God it did. Like I look at it now and it's like, it's wonderful. But I didn't know how to cope with any of that stuff because I was never taught how to cope with any of that stuff, So that was it for me.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you so much. Mr. N, what are your thoughts on this? When things were tough for you in your younger years, were you taught any good coping skills?
Fuck no. Sorry for the language. No, it's like, no, we're talking. I'm from a small town from California. We're just suck it up, man. Don't cry. Don't show any weakness. You got to be a man about crap. You can't let your vulnerability show to other people. I mean, it's not a weakness. And if you show a little weakness, it'd be like you're going to make a little lamb in the wolf pack. They're going to slaughter you. Can't get it. It was just, it's just kind of hard to show your flaws.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. Thank you, Mr. N. And Mr. G, same question to you. When things were tough for you in your younger years, share some coping skills you learned.
All right, then mine was basically food. Growing up in an Italian family, we used food for everything. And the two main love languages in the family were anger and food. There was a lot of happiness or love most of the time. I had a brother who, because I was the baby, I got picked on a lot. And I had a father that basically said, it's your fault. You don't know how to fight like a man. You fight like a little fairy or whatever term you want to put in there. And so the only thing I knew to do to deal with the pain and the thing is to turn to food. And I agree with the other guys. We didn't know coping skill. I didn't know that was a coping skill at the time, not until I was older. I didn't realize, I thought it was just normal. I thought that's what everybody did. I just thought it was part of life. And now as I'm older and now that I'm in 12-step recovery, it's a whole different ballgame. I know I have people I can reach out to when those feelings come up, and I don't have to go grab the refrigerator handle. I can grab the phone. It's actually, you can actually talk to people on the phone. It's not for ordering pizza anymore.
That's great. I love how you put that. Thank you so much, Mr. G. Thanks everybody for your answers. Bobbie, you got another question for our gentleman here?
I do. Okay, guys, this is a long one. We know that stereotypes cause men's feelings to be pushed aside to fit the idea that men should be strong, silent, and unemotional. It is critical to understand that mental health problems begin early on. Knowing what I just said, what would you tell your 10-year-old you?
Good question. Mr. H.
I don't know.
What advice would you give your 10-year-old self?
I guess I'm gonna pass that one.
Okay, Mr. N's going to pass. How about you, Mr. R? do I need to read it again? Okay. We know that stereotypes cause men's feelings to be pushed aside to fit the idea that men should be strong, silent, and unemotional. It is critical to understand that mental health problems begin early. Knowing what I just said, what would you tell your 10-year-old or 16-year-old self about mental health stigma?
So the only thing that comes to mind for me right now is if I had to go back, or if I was able to go back and tell him anything, it was that none of that stuff that he's going through, that he's worrying about, that is mentally weighing on him at this time, either internally or externally, matters. None of it matters. It truly doesn't, you know? So I don't think that that's a coping mechanism. I hope maybe one of the other guys on this panel has a better answer than that, but that's all that it would be to me. And then maybe if I was able to tell myself that none of that stuff matters, maybe the rest of it wouldn't have happened when life did start to matter. Because by the time, you know, you've got a career and you've got a family and you've got kids and you got real responsibilities, I didn't know how to just let things go, you know, and just move on and live like, you know, some of us and maybe all of us in this room do now, which is one day at a time, you know. But I learned how to dwell on things back in that day over some of the stupidest stuff. Like, you know, was I going to get my homework in on time? Like, why in the world am I worrying about that? Right. So if I could tell him anything, it would just be that whatever your biggest problem is right now, it doesn't matter. And I would say that in some ways, that's one of the things I look at myself now and I say, all right, this problem that you're having, how much does it really matter? You know? So I guess that's all I got. I hope somebody else has a better answer than that.
I love that answer, Mr. R. I loved it. Okay, now we're going to go to you, Mr. HD. Do you need me to repeat it? I can.
Yeah, please.
Okay. We know that stereotypes cause men's feelings to be pushed aside to fit the idea that men should be strong, silent, and unemotional. It is critical to understand that mental health problems begin early on. Knowing what you know today, what would you tell a 10 or 16-year-old version? What would you tell you at 10 or 16?
Never really thought about what I would do, what I would say, because I don't know that I would believe it, because I was so full of anxiety about fitting into, you know, what everyone else was and what everyone else did. I mean, I was the chubby kid, you know. I was the Italian kid in a mostly, you know, German Irish neighborhood. I just wanted to be accepted, and I stood out in every way. So, and I didn't want to stand out. I just wanted to be like everybody else. And I guess what I would say was that you are like everyone. There is nothing different. You know, just try and relax and calm down and recognize that you're just like them. They're no different than you. All that difference I made up. It was in my head. That's what I would say.
I love that answer too, Mr. HD. You guys are just like, my heart is so full of love for you guys today. Mr. G, we know that stereotypes causes men's feelings to be pushed aside to fit the idea that men should be strong, silent, and unemotional. It is critical and understand that mental health problems begin early on. Knowing that, just knowing what I just said, what would you advise the 10-year-old you?
I guess what comes to mind is what Mr. R said. It doesn't really matter. Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. But back then, everything was like huge. You think everything's your fault, and and stuff. So yeah, I would have to say that, and also getting connected with a higher power and knowing that the only one that really matters what is God, and God doesn't stereotype. But I wish I would have known that back then, because maybe I might have done things different, but I'm not sure. Because my family didn't believe in mental health. They figured that if you need counseling, you might as well be locked up. So yeah, we have to say it's all small stuff.
I absolutely love that too. All you guys, your answers just really warm my heart, because I can really appreciate what you said as a woman. I just wish someone would go back to I wish I could go back to my 16-year-old me and give her a hug and say, you know what? It doesn't matter what they think of you. You're a beautiful person. So I'm really, really grateful for what you guys just said. You really warm my heart. Back to you, Mandi.
Thank you so much, Bobbie, and thank you so much, gentlemen.
Can I cut in real quick? Can I just cut in real fast just to continue on that? Sorry. Did you notice though, and I do want to make sure that anybody listening to this realizes, none of the men said I would go back and give myself a hug. Like, I thought that was powerful when Bobbie said that. I would just like to go back and give myself a hug. Yes. None of us guys said that. None of us.
I didn't even think about that. I would give myself an extra cannoli, but not
right.
a hug.
Exactly, right? So I just wanted to point that out, that Bobbie, the female, says, give a hug.
One of the coping mechanisms I talk about is we weren't taught self-love. That's like a huge thing, to love ourselves. And so if we love ourselves, we look for the better. We do better, with that extra. And that's what I come into recovery to learn, that I don't love myself. That's the root of all the sickness that I've had all my life. And I see it in so many people. So mental health to me is I didn't love myself enough. And now that I do, I take care of all my health, my physical. Well, I try to anyway, my physical and my mental, my spiritual, my emotional. But it's work. It's a lot of work. And you have to find people that you're comfortable with and places that are safe to talk in. And there's the next question. Can you name someone, not names because we're doing anonymity, but do you have someone in your life that you can talk to on a regular basis about your feelings or about your stressors? And how important is that to you? We'll go to Mr. N. Mr. N, do you have someone that you can talk to on a regular basis about your feelings?
Not my age bracket.
Mm-hmm.
See, I feel like if I said something like that to one of my buddies my age bracket, I have a friend of mine older I talk to about shit like that. But people my age bracket, I feel like they'd call me, I don't know. It wouldn't be I don't know. It'd be looked frowned upon. Like, we don't talk to each other about that. It's kind of like we let in our minds. I don't know. It's not Texas or anything. We feel like that's something like the girls would have to do. They can find each other, but guys, I don't know. There's a stigma on it. We don't want to look like we're weaker. We're the alphas. We're the top dogs. We gotta sit there and we gotta get the bone and keep the bone. We can't give it up. We can't show a side weakness.
And Mr. Andy, is that important to you to be able to share your feelings and share your stressors to get them out?
Well, I mean, most of the time I kind of just leave it in. I can't let it out. But I mean, when I do, it kind of feels like you put 20 pounds of potato salad in a 5-pound bucket, you have a lot of crap hanging out. That's kind of how it is sometimes.
I understand that for sure. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Mr. N. Mr. HD, same question to you. Do you have someone that you can talk to on a regular basis about your feelings and stressors, and how important is that to you on your daily life?
It's very important now. I do. I have somebody I can speak. I have several people I can speak to, and that's part of my coping mechanism now, because of not being accepted and for wanting to be a better person in my earlier life. I kind of compartmentalize all of that. So I have someone I can talk to about really emotional things that are I wouldn't share with anyone else. I have someone I can talk to about other things that are less more about being a parent. I've got a few people. I kind of break it up. The only problem with that is that there's no one person that gets the whole picture. There's one person who gets a couple of different of those, but nobody gets it all. I can't trust anybody, and that's something that I haven't been able to let go of yet. I can't trust anybody with all of it. I just can't. I don't know why. It's something that deep seated in me to keep it to myself. I can show you a little, but what I show you, I don't show anyone else. And what I show them, I don't show you. It just doesn't work that way for me. I can't do it. It's too much exposure, too much perceived weakness, and that's what it comes down to. I don't want to be perceived as weak.
I get that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I totally feel you on that. Mr. G, same question to you. You got someone that you can talk to on a regular basis about your feelings and your stressors, and how important is that to you?
Now it's really important because because of me having gastric bypass, I cannot go back to the way I was. I could literally eat myself to death if I was to go back to doing what I was doing. So it is extremely important. And I'm going to say that one of the people that I can reach out to is my pastor. So having a good relationship in a church, because I am also part of a men's group that I can reach out, but I also have accountability buddies in my 12-step groups. And matter of fact, we nicknamed ourselves the Bobs, and there's about 3 of us, and it stands for Band of Brothers.
I like that.
Also comes from the Office Space movie where it says, "Oh, we're gonna go talk to the Bobs."
I remember that. That's a good one. I remember that, the Bobs.
So it comes to that too, but yeah, it's extremely important because I have to deal with my emotions different now. I mean, food is not an option anymore. It can't be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
there are healthier ways.
Like I said, I want to eat myself to death.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're glad you're here. So glad you're here. And so glad you're sharing with us. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mr. R, same question to you. Have you got someone that you can talk to on a regular basis about your feelings or stress, and how important is that for you?
Yeah. So, in 12-step programs, there's somebody that you put your everything in, and I have that person that I'm able to do that with. But I will also say that I also have other people, but it's a lot like what Mr. HD said. It is a little slice here and a little slice there, unless you're that one person in the program, and I do think a lot of it is vulnerability. It's too much risk. It's, I'd rather be like a mutual fund than go all in on some IBM stock. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's putting myself way too out there if I go all in on one person. And even in the 12-step programs, to go all in on that one person, I mean, you got to understand that was do or die. It was, I kind of had to do that or I was going to go back out and drink again, So yeah, I mean, do I have one person? Yes. And then there's also other people that get little slices of the pie. And then I will say that I do have a small group of guys that are not to talk to, but they kind of understand that, hey, if I call and say, we got to go do this, we're not talking about what in the world is going on, but they're taking my mind out of whatever possible problem I might have. And I would do the same thing for them. They call me up and say, hey, I need a canoe trip on Saturday. Let's go. I'm canceling plans and we're going on a canoe trip. You know what I mean? So, but we're not at all going to sit there while we're canoeing going, how's your emotions going today? Like, we're not talking about that stuff,
No, you're
we're
going to canoe. You're going to canoe.
Right. And it's to get your mind off of all that crap, So anyway, I mean, that's just how things go in today's world. And again, I can't even imagine what it would be if I didn't have the 12-step programs to lean on, So, and the people in them, because that's important too.
Definitely, I agree. Thank you so much for sharing that. And to tag on to that, it's so true. I just shared at a meeting last week that I don't know that I would physically still be alive if I didn't get in the 12-step programs. I was on that cusp, and I've been there before. But when I didn't have any coping mechanisms and I was young and just whatever, I don't care. No one's going to care if I'm gone. I'll just, end myself. And when you're in the thick of the chaos and you don't have that 12-step, it's easy. And in the beginning of my 12-step life, I was still on that cusp. And I'm glad I had those people that I could reach out to because they saved my life. They really did. And I'm so thankful for the 12-step recovery program. So on to the next question. Bobbie, you got a good question in your pocket there, girl, for these gentlemen?
I have another long one, Miss Mandi. Okay. And again, guys, I just want to say thank you so much. It's just been such an eye opener in my heart. It's just so much for the men. I know I have a newer, bigger compassion. Okay, here's a question. Contrary to what many people think, mental health struggles are not inborn. Anyone can develop depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, or social anxiety. What are your thoughts on this? And did you believe mental health struggles are organic, so it was born with it, or can develop? And when you were younger, and do you have any new thoughts to share with younger males today? So we'll go with you, Mr. HG.
Okay. You lost me halfway through that. Give me the first part again.
Okay. So contrary to what many people think, mental health struggles are not inborn.
Okay.
Anyone can develop depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, social anxiety. What are your thoughts on this? And did you believe mental health struggles or organic were born with or can develop when you were a younger? And do you have any new thoughts to share with the younger men of today?
Yes. Okay. So I think more the problem is that the way I learned was that wasn't afforded to me as a man. That was more for women. They were allowed to have that peculiar way about them. They could be emotional. They could be weak. They could be vulnerable. They could be depressed. That was something that happened monthly, with women. That was not what I was allowed to have. And that's unfortunate because there are a lot of people who are like that. I didn't recognize it in myself. Someone else had to point it out to me. That's how out of touch I was with my own, situation, is that I didn't even know that I was that deep into, a depression and had that much anxiety. I had no idea. I just thought that was the way I was supposed to live. That was it. And I wasn't afforded the luxury of being able to not, to just, to fall apart. Then that's what it was known as. It was falling apart. You had to handle it. There was no option. There literally was no other option. It's A or B. What are you going to do? Drop dead? No, you got to keep going. It's got to be the way it is. And that's it. And that was for everything. And it didn't serve me well. It didn't serve me well at all until I learned that there's a third option. There's a third option to everything. The world isn't black and white. There are shades of gray in feelings, in capability, in culpability that I never knew. So I think it's better to feel this way and be able to just express it, even to myself, even to just stop and take a breath and go, okay, what am I feeling? What is actually happening? Let me try and observe this from the outside, which that was never even an option. It was never even an option. So
now it is. It's an option to be able to look at it from a different perspective, different point of view, and be able to have a moment for myself.
Thank you, HG. Thank you so much for that great answer. Mr. R. Contrary to what
All
many
right,
people
you don't have to read the whole thing again. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I got it. So I'm gonna go first, right off the bat. The first 3/4 of that question doesn't even pertain to me because my ego is and always has been so high that I never thought once about something being born. I was so special and I was so just different than everybody else. And I was just, again, my ego was so big that I just thought that I was, anxiety and stress and all that was all unique to just me. So none of that beginning part of the whole thing even pertains to me because I never once thought about any of that stuff. It was all just my stress, my anxiety, my whatever, and that I was different than everybody else. Again, because I think I'm so special, right? But that last part about, what would you do? I forget how you phrased it, but kind of like, how do you think about that now or whatever? And what I would say to young men now is get yourself a group of really close guy friends who can not necessarily, like we've talked about in here. Listen, we're not talking to our guy friends about our emotions, right? It's not happening. But again, they can take you away from that emotion and all that crap for a little while, and they can give you a break from it if you have a real good group of close guy friends. And then the other thing I would say is talk to your mom. And I don't want to. I really hope that I don't come out of left field on this, but I'm going to say something that, and I don't want to start a whole different discussion, but I've heard this many times, especially recently. The only person that's going to love a man unconditionally is his mother. The only person. So talk to your mom. Even if your mom is not ready to talk to you at that moment, don't stop talking to her. And when she is ready, she's also going to come to you because she's going to see that you are acting differently. And when she does come to you, tell her, because she doesn't care. She doesn't have any ulterior motive. So get used to, at a young age, talking to your mom and have her be that person that you can lean on later on in life. Because again, she's the only one that's not going to care whether or not you show weakness. So that's what I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. R. Great answer. Mr. G. Want me to read it again?
I read it. I got it.
A long one. Thank you,
That's a
Mandi.
great question. I don't have a great answer for it, but I kind of agree with what Mr. R was just saying as far as keep that relationship open with your mom. Unfortunately, my mom passed away when I was about 21, so I wound up having to get some adoptive moms. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And as far as the mental health stigma or whatever, I would say that, if you don't deal with your emotions now, they're going to come out in some other way and you're not going to like it. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be dealing, and you're going to have to it's going to take a lot of time to fix the damage that you've caused to yourself or to other people, and in case, and hopefully some of it's fixable. So I would say definitely that, and get a group of men that you can really rely on. And I also believe strongly, and I have several mentors in my life for different areas of my life. I have business mentors, I have spiritual mentors. I have, OA mentors, or my sponsor, if you want to call it that. So yeah, I would say definitely mentorship, communication, communicate. That's the biggest thing. Don't keep it in anymore, because that's when you turn to the self-harming behavior, whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, it's cutting, whatever it is. So that would be my answer. Hopefully that's on
Hey,
topic.
this is really great answers, guys. Really great answers. Okay, back to you, Miss Mandi.
Oh my goodness. So I had some questions, but you guys are answering them all as you share your answers for other questions, which is really great stuff. This is such great stuff. So I'm going to ask, how do you typically express your negative emotions? What's your go-to? Mr. N, we haven't heard from you in a little while. So how do you express your negative emotions?
So I kind of bottle all this crap in. Like I said before earlier, I put 20 pounds in a 5-gallon bucket, and when I explode, I'm a real dickhead to everybody. And I can be a real, I don't know, it's kind of like you get that. It's like a hurricane. It's all nice and peaceful inside. But when it gets out and you get outside of the eye, it's a destructive son of a gun. It's like me. That's what me. When I let it release, I'm an asshole to everybody. I'm not in a clear-minded state of mind. And yeah, just very, like there's no mechanism to release it otherwise. I mean, I don't feel like there's any other good option for me. I don't like going in kind of like, I feel like men actually myself feel like we feel like bothersome. We have to be out. Oh, we don't want to look weak or whatever. That's just my personal opinion. And yeah, I'll pass it to the next.
Thank you, Mr. N. Thanks for being here and for sharing with us. Mr. HD, you are up. How do you typically express your negative emotions? What's your go-to?
Well, I try and put these things in terms of what I used to do and what I do now. So what I used to do was I didn't express them. I used to keep them bottled up completely because I just didn't know what to do. Now, when I'm starting to feel these negative emotions, I really try and be observant. And the way I've learned to explain it is to look at it as if I'm a third party examining, looking at it from the outside. Take me out of it. This is somebody else doing it. What would I be doing there? What would I say to them? How would I feel?
The other thing that I do is I pray. I pray. I talk to in my case, my higher power is God. And I pray every morning. I pray every morning on my way to work. I get up, and that 20 minutes to work is my time. You know, if I felt that the least I could do is give God 20 minutes a day. He gives me the other 23 hours and 40 minutes for me. 20 minutes in the morning is when he and I talk. So that's what I do.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. Mr. G, how do you typically express your negative emotions, and what's your go-to? We know it's not food anymore, so what is it?
Oh, you took my answer right out of my mouth, Mandi.
I knew that.
Literally, with no pun intended.
Give me that food.
Seriously, I really like what Mr. HG just said as far as pray. One thing I do in the morning before my devotional is on my phone because I do the YouVersion Bible app, and there's a daily devotional. I open that up before I do anything else. I don't look at email or text or voicemail. And I take 40 minutes to myself for prayer, devotional, quiet time, kind of plan my day kind of thing. But yeah, I try to turn it all over to God, realize that God is, in my case, my higher power is God, and God is in control. And I also try to look at it I try to have, I guess, is it empathy? I think empathy is the word I'm looking for. Put myself in the other person's shoes, or like, well, and I know I've heard the example many times in meetings and on different shows. Well, if somebody cuts you off, what do? You know, what, and now I have to think about, well, maybe the wife is ill and they're trying to get to the hospital. Maybe they're not just being a dick. Maybe they really do have an issue and they're not focused. They're focused on the problem, not the traffic or whatever the case might be. So yeah, I try to give people more the benefit of the doubt before going to the anger button or obviously not food anymore. And yeah, again, like I said in my other answer, communication. I guess I've heard another program where they have to get the issue past your vocal cords.
Mhm.
So that
Very
would be
good.
my answer.
Thank you, Mr. G. Thank you so much. Mr. Mr. R, we're on to you. How do you typically express your negative emotions, and what's your go-to?
I don't have negative emotions. Come on now. You want me to come on here where other people could be listening and talking about negative emotions? Stop it. No. So I would say, I mean, listen, Mr. G, Mr. HG, Mr. N, they basically summed it all up with, how it all comes out, and then people talking about higher powers. And I would definitely say that being able to just kind of turn over a lot of stuff, keeps me on like an even keel where my emotions don't get too high or too low. I mean, I know we're talking about negative emotions here, but like way high, overly positive emotions can really jack up my brain too. So I really have to do everything I can to just kind of stay centered, stay balanced. I like to consider myself almost like a Jedi. I got to keep balance in the Force. But I will say that I'm also human, so I'm not perfect, and emotions do get to me. And because of the 12-step programs, I'm able to recognize them. And one of the biggest things that I know that something is out of whack is I get mean. And I don't mean like mean as in like hardcore mean, like you wouldn't even know. I just get like snappy with you. I get kind of short with you, and that's when I know that something is off. And it might not even be your fault, but it could be a bunch of other things that are going on, and then you just were the last thing that lit that fuse, and then when that happens, that's when I have to reach out, and I have to call someone, and I have to talk to someone. I have to remove myself from the situation. I have to go into a bathroom and seek out my higher power. There's all sorts of ways of dealing with negative emotions now. 15 years ago, there was only one way, and that was through drugs and alcohol. But, now I have the programs and they help me. But yeah, I mean, it's through a higher power and just reaching out to people who understand how my brain works, because my brain does not work like the normal person, so that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. R. Thank you, everyone, for answering our question. Bobbie, do we have another question, or do you think we want to do our final thoughts?
I feel like I want to throw this one out to the universe, and maybe some people after they hear this podcast, they can send us with their comments, and the gentleman will pick a couple guys to answer this. But I do feel like we had the great panel of men today, because what we've seen today is we have a large age group. Our youngest is 30. And I notice our younger generation is still struggles with being vulnerable. And so I'm so grateful for our, the older gentlemen and their recovery time that can share that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for help. All their answers were so amazing and so supportive. And I really feel like there's so many young people out there that today's going to benefit. So here is the final question. And then I'll send it over. We'll get a couple of you guys, whoever wants to answer, feel free to answer. It says, regardless of how you were raised, how can you take responsibility for yourself and role model? Ultimately, accountability for young men to improve the stigma around mental health. I'm going to start with Mr. N because he's smiling.
You know what? I got an easy one. So, I felt like this was kind of my event. This is how I did it for the youth. I decided to go back and coach. I mean, that was kind of a hard thing. I was like, before I hit my rock bottom, I was looking football, but I was kind of in between the left and the right. I was all over the road. I didn't know where the hell I was going. And I screwed up about 3 years ago. This year, I had a chance to redeem myself and kind of helping the youth kind of shows them hey, it's all right to be an F up, and it's all right to do that. You have more than one chance of life. You're not defined by your fuck ups. And you're not defined by what your stigma is or whatever your problem is. You can still develop as a person and be better than that. You don't have to be who you were. You can be anyone.
Okay, who else would like to answer that?
I'll take a crack at it.
Okay, Derek. Okay, Mr. G.
I would say just what we've been talking what we've been talking about is, we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but it's what we do with those mistakes, how we learn from them, what we do. Because I've heard it said many times, the only amends is change behavior. You can tell somebody you're not going to do this over and over again, but until you prove to them that you can't. And I think we as men, we need to be role models to the younger men. We are called in the Bible to be leaders of our household, of the people around us. And these young kids don't have, or young men, a lot of places don't have fathers and stuff to look up to because their fathers have split the scene or deceased or whatever. So I think it's very important. And I also want to offer that if, anybody needs help, we're all here. I'll take a call anytime, and that goes to Mr. N because I know he's struggling a little bit with finding people. Give me a call. I'll talk to you. I may not have the same disease as you, but I have some of the same tools to work with. So that would be my answer. And again, thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. How about Mr. R? You want to close it up with, or Mr. HD? Who wants to close it up? Both of you will be great.
Yeah, I'll go on this one. Just basically just being present, which is I think what Mr. N and Mr. G both basically said is you just have to be present and be aware of other men in your surroundings. I think that's I don't know if women really understand that there is a weird competition in every room that men are in. We're all sizing each other up every second of every day. So just take a minute and just see what the other men in the room are doing, how they're feeling. Are they acting normal? Talk to them, bring them in. It's just about being present for them. I love what Mr. N is doing. I only had daughters, so I wasn't able to get out there and really coach any young men, but I would have loved to have been a better role model for those people. But I can at work for the younger men that come in, and I always try and just make them aware that, I'm there and that we can have a good time and just BS and talk to them. Like I work in a world that has, it's a kind of a female dominated career, in my job. So offices that I have that have a lot of men, like, trust me, they become my go-to offices on a Friday afternoon. That's where I want to be because I want guy time sometimes, and so just to sum it all up, just be present. Just be present, be aware of other guys around you, and turn off the macho BS for a minute. Just let everybody just be themselves for a minute, and people will start opening up.
Thank you, Mr. R. Again, everyone, I want to thank all of our men that were here today. We had a variety of men from the earliest, the youngest is, I think, 30, and the oldest, I think, is 45, maybe closer to 50. And they're all in 12-step recovery groups. And my feelings from today is I want to just go out to all the young people and hug them, because young men don't realize that, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. It's okay to give hugs. It's okay. Talk to your mom, talk to your sisters, find a group of men, young men, the older gentlemen, just keep reaching out to the young, because they need to know it's okay to be vulnerable. And, I don't want to read about any young person taking their life. And we read in the beginning, 1 every 20 minutes is taking their life because they thought they had no other choice. That was their solution to life's problems. And I don't want to read about another person taking their life. So let's make a difference today. Let's start loving our men. Let's start being more compassionate. Let's make it easier for men to be vulnerable. Let's support them. Let's show them love and compassion. Back to you, Mandi.
Thank you so much, Bobbie. And yeah, I'm so appreciative of all you being here. I have 2 young boys myself, and their father is not here. He is out of the picture. They only see him like on holidays. So he doesn't have those things to instill in him. And me as a mother, I can't do all the stuff that men can do for their children, you know? I have to depend on other people and depend on you guys, all my tribe, to say, hey, you know, what's going on, and know how to learn how to teach them how to be aware of themselves and their own, what their needs are and what their emotions are. And thank goodness for 12-step programs, because I am osmosisly just teaching my children anyway how to deal with life in a 12-step life, which is wonderful. So I'm already on a good page there. But thank you so much. I can't even put into words how much I appreciate all of your voices being here with us today. And thank you, Bobbie, for putting together those questions and getting all the material for us. And thank you for our listeners for being here to our Dragonflower Recovery. We are enjoying our journey so much. Please come back and listen, and please share with everybody and comment anytime. If you have a topic that you want to hear that we haven't covered yet, just bring it up to us. We would love to cover some new topics. And again, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Love you, Bobbie.
I love you too. I just want to let everyone know, all of our listeners and our panel, please, on the top of all of our pages, so Trudging Together, Dragonflower, all of the pages, we do have a resource page that we put together with all the resources for everything, all the 800 numbers, so no one has to feel alone. This is not a 1 month issue. This is a 365 for men and women, mental health. And we just want to not lose another person. And there is help out there, and we want you to know that we are there for you. So please, if you ever feel the need to contact me and Mandi, please do so, or anyone who's here today will be available for support and love. So back to you, Mandi.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Love y'all.
Bye, everyone. We love you. We love you. We love you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us. It was great.